My name is Jessica. 5 years ago, when I was 12 years old, something happened that changed my family's life forever. To this day, no one has found an answer. It started out at my aunt's house. We were all invited over. Their old, sprawling home sat in one of the city's oldest neighborhoods. It was a 2-story house with a large backyard, countless rooms, and a dark basement that none of the kids dared to enter. The house smelled of old wood and dampness. The windows were always half open, and the curtains kept the rooms dim even during the day. All of the adults were gathered in the living room, drinking tea, eating fruit, and chatting. The kids were free to do whatever we wanted. My aunt's daughter, Angela, and my uncle's daughter, Alice, were both 8 years old and completely obsessed with hide and seek. They started playing right after lunch. At first, Alice hid while Angela searched. Angela was surprisingly good at finding people, and every time Alice thought she found the perfect hiding spot, Angela would discover her within minutes. Eventually, it was Angela's turn to hide. Before running off, she laughed and told Alice,
"This time, you won't find me."
Alice closed her eyes and began counting to 30. The moment she started counting, Angela ran out of the room. I was sitting on the couch watching a movie, but every now and then, I glanced over at them. 30 seconds passed. Alice opened her eyes and started searching. She checked the living room, the kitchen, the bedrooms, the closets, and then she went upstairs. I could hear her footsteps echoing across the old wooden floorboards. Every few minutes, she would shout,
"Angela, I found you!"
But no answer ever came. 30 minutes passed. Alice finally came downstairs. Her face was red, and she was sweating. She walked up to Angela's mom and said in a shaky voice,
"Mom, I can't find Angela. I looked everywhere."
Angela's mother laughed. The adults were still busy talking and didn't think much of it. Another 30 minutes passed. Alice was starting to cry. Now some of the adults got up to help. They opened every door, looked under beds, checked closets, searched the backyard, the garage, everywhere. There was no sign of Angela. Then it was time for everyone to leave. Angela's father stood up and called out loudly, "Angela, sweetheart, come out. We're leaving now." The house fell silent. No answer. That was the moment everyone realized something was seriously wrong. The search became frantic. Every room was checked again. Every closet, every cabinet, every possible hiding place. They even unlocked and searched the basement, a place that was normally off limits. Nothing. No sounds, no footprints, no toys, no clothing, no sign that Angela had ever been there. The police were called. Tracking dogs were brought in. They searched the entire neighborhood. Officers combed through nearby streets, yards, and abandoned buildings. Local news stations even covered the disappearance, but no clues were ever found. It was as if Angela had simply vanished the moment she went to hide. 5 years have passed. Angela is still missing. Sometimes I dream about her. In those dreams, I hear her voice calling to me from somewhere dark, a closet, the basement, sometimes from behind a closed door. She always says the same thing.
"Find me."
But whenever I reach her and pull the door open, I only see a shadow, and then it fades away. Alice barely speaks anymore. Angela's mother still bakes a birthday cake every year and lights candles for her daughter. She never misses a birthday. My aunt's house has never felt the same since that day. Most people simply refer to it as the incident. But those of us who were there know something about that day felt terribly wrong. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if Angela was never really found because she never left. Maybe she's still hiding somewhere inside that old house. And maybe she doesn't want to be found anymore.
Hello, Wansi. I've always loved scary stories, but I never imagined I would experience something like that myself. It happened about 12 months ago, and just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. That day was like any other, at least that's what I thought at the time. My parents and older brothers had gone to work, and I was home with my 2 younger sisters. They were playing with toys in another room. I was comfortably immersed in the chilling atmosphere while watching your horror videos when I suddenly heard something. It was a whisper. It was faint, but I could hear it clearly. Come here. Come here. At first I thought I'd misheard, but then I heard the sound again. Soft, almost broken. It sounded like the voice of someone who hadn't spoken for a long time. My sisters didn't notice anything. They continued playing as if nothing had happened, but I jumped up, my heart pounding, and went upstairs. Our kitchen was upstairs. The moment I stepped onto the last step, I heard the sound of something being chewed. It was a very loud sound. And then I saw her, a woman. No, she was closer to a shadow than a woman. Her gray hair, reduced to nothing but bones, covered her face. She stood in front of an open refrigerator, eating raw meat with her bare hands. Blood was dripping from her mouth, and she turned around and looked at me. Her eyes were a cold, hazy blue, as if they'd seen too much. Blood stained her lips, and she wore a chilling smile. It was a twisted, terrifying smile. I screamed. I slammed the kitchen door shut and ran downstairs. My siblings ran toward me crying, and then everything went dark. I lost consciousness. Our neighbor heard the scream and ran into the house. He saw the woman too. She was staring at us with a knife in her hand, her mouth still covered in blood. The police arrived soon, and she was arrested. We later found out she was a mentally unstable homeless person who had entered through an unlocked door while we were distracted. I was so engrossed in scary stories that I didn't even realize someone had broken into the house. But what was the most horrific part? Even now, when I close my eyes, that woman comes to mind. That face, those empty eyes, that blood-stained smile.
This happened one summer, about 2 years ago. I had just graduated from college, and I was on my way to a friend's place to drink and party. As I drove along the highway, the sky grew dark before I realized it, so I pressed it down on the gas, hoping to get there faster. At the same time, I was buzzing with excitement, thinking about all the fun my friend and I were going to have that night. Before I knew it, the moonlight was illuminating the road, and dense forest stretched out on both sides. There were hardly any cars around. When I saw a sign for a rest area, I decided to pull in and grab a quick snack. The moment I stepped out of my car, something caught my eye. A man was standing nearby, staring at me. I froze for a second, but tried my best to act casual. He stood in a dark corner, his face hidden behind thick black hair. In his hand, he held something that looked like a metal pipe. He lifted it to his mouth like a microphone and began humming a strange tune I couldn't quite make out. Assuming he was just some weirdo, I hurried past him and headed toward the convenience store. Even after I reached the entrance and glanced back, he was still standing there, watching me. As I entered the store, I noticed the clerk was nowhere to be seen. Instead, I could hear someone humming softly, somewhere between the aisles. By that point, I knew something felt wrong. I quickly grabbed an energy drink and headed for the exit. Then, a loud bang slammed against the glass door behind me. I spun around. The man from outside was opening the door and stepping into the store. Under the bright lights, I could finally see him clearly. He was tall, and his hands were covered in scars. Slowly, he started walking toward me, gripping the metal pipe. Then he spoke. "Your screams will make our song complete. We needed another instrument, and then you showed up." As he stared at me, his eyes moved up and down my body, sizing me up, and as they did, his humming grew louder. The clerk was still nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, the person hidden somewhere between the shelves continued humming as well. The two sounds blended together in a disturbingly perfect harmony. My heart nearly stopped. Then it began pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. The man's footsteps seemed almost rhythmic, like he was moving to the beat of some invisible song. Then he pulled out his phone. He tapped something on the screen and held it up for me to see. A voice recorder app was running. Next, he set the phone down on a nearby shelf. Then he gripped the metal pipe with both hands and took a stance like he was preparing to swing it. At that moment, the air seemed to freeze. I ran. I bolted for the door and sprinted out of the store. Seconds later, he came charging after me. I jumped into my car, started the engine, and slammed my foot on the gas pedal. As I sped away, I saw him climb into a truck that had been parked in a dark corner of the lot. Then he came after me. The truck raced onto the highway behind me. As he drove, he leaned his head out the driver's side window and screamed in an impossibly high-pitched voice. My hands shook violently on the steering wheel, but I kept driving as fast as I could. Eventually, the truck grew smaller and smaller in my rearview mirror. Then it disappeared completely. It took a long time for the shaking to stop. The entire drive afterward felt unreal. Thoughts poured through my head non-stop. The strangest part was that I never saw a single employee in that store. I still don't know whether the person humming between the shelves was actually a clerk or someone else entirely. It was well past midnight when I finally arrived at my friend's house. Still shaken and half-dazed, I told him everything that happened. He was horrified. He told me I should call the police immediately, but by then, I felt like it was already too late. Since that night, the man has appeared in my dreams from time to time. In those dreams, he always catches me, and he always beats me. I wake up every time, fighting the urge to scream, and the tune he was humming, it never really left me. Even now, I can still hear it playing over and over in my head, like a song that refuses to end.